Hello, and welcome to the Don't Stop the Education series presented by Sennheiser Sound Academy. Hope everyone's doing marvelously well. I'm Tim Moore, and today we'll be talking about remote recording, production, and mixing, and how people approach that both prior to the coronavirus and during the coronavirus, and how it's affected their work. I'd like to welcome my co-host, Andy Edgerton, who'll be helping me here. Andy, how are
Hi.
you?
Hello. Hi, how you doing? Sorry about that.
Good.
Excellent. Yeah, another week. Thank you so much for everyone who's joining us. It's bound to be an interesting topic. I'm going to let Tim introduce our guests.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Good. Make sure everyone gets their camera on. First up there, we have Hubert Payne. Hey, Hubert, how are you?
How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for joining us. We have
Thanks for
Luke
having me.
Muller.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Next beside him, we've got Kenny Thurman.
All right, Johnny, you have to hit your thing in the bottom again, bottom left. A little red microphone to unmute it.
Go. And while Johnny's doing that, we'll go to Keo. Hey, Keo, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Very good. Very good. And then Johnny on the bottom left here for me. Johnny, how are you this morning?
I'm wonderful, brother. How are you?
Very good. Thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks everybody in the audience for joining us. We'll
Now I'm
kick
not
this conversation off.
audio, guys.
And
Relaunch.
you have us there, Kenny? All right, we'll keep going until Kenny's set there. But just to let everybody in the audience know that
I
we're
am
recording
unmuted.
this, we'll put it back out later. If anybody wants to watch it later on, and we'll also be taking questions for the guests here. But rather than me telling about everyone here, how about I let you guys tell about yourself? We can start with Johnny.
Well, I'm Johnny Hyland, and I'm a guitar artist, Kiesel Guitars. Really, recording is very new for me. And to be honest with you, I have to give a lot of thanks to Mr. Kenny Thurman, who's here, because without Kenny, I probably wouldn't be recording remotely at this time. When I moved up to Chatham, Virginia, Kenny was kind enough to help a blind man get set up to be able to record. And actually, I'm 45 years old, and for the first time in my life, I've been able to record on my own. So it's been a real blessing, and definitely miss Nashville at times, but love being in Chatham, and just hope everybody's staying safe during this uncertain time. And let's get into some recording fun as we get chatting here.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Keo?
Yep, Keo here. Yeah. Drummer. I do the session thing in Nashville. I have the home recording thing, and then I tour with Big and Rich. Last year I had a fun one where I toured with Big and Rich and Hank Jr. But yeah, so that's just kind of what I do. I play drums and try to make it feel good for the people, and I love sounds. So
Very nice. Very nice. And to Keo, to the side of Keo, we've got Kenny. Kenny, how'd you get into the recording thing?
Well, I was a live audio engineer and still am. Well, not this year, obviously, but been a live engineer for about 40 years. And I don't know, a little over 10 years ago, a buddy of mine got me interested in studio recording. And I thought, well, I'm so used to mixing on the fly, and I never get a second chance to go back and do anything. So you have to get it right, obviously on the first try. And so I kind of got the studio recording bug and got myself some software and interface and that sort of thing. And he taught me a whole lot about studio recording. And for the past 10 or 12 years, I've really concentrated a lot on it and applied a lot of the live aspect of what I do, frequency hunting and that sort of thing. And so I've just got the bug, and unfortunately it won't stop. It keeps biting me. And I've had a lot of great studio engineer buddies of mine one in particular from Muscle Shoals that recorded and mixed a lot of the stuff that we grew up on that came out of Muscle Shoals in the 70s and 80s, and a few other people. So the biggest thing for me is to sit back, listen to what they're saying, watch and apply it and try it, because you can always hit the space bar and start again. So I was in Nashville for a lot of years. I recently moved back to my home state of Virginia, just down the road from Johnny, and I'm getting a little older, and I've been out there hustling so long that I just want to slow down a little bit, and this is the perfect place to do it. So thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And I'll go over to Hubert. Hubert?
Hello, I'm Hubert.
How you
I'm the touring and recording drummer for Little Big Town, a country act. I got into recording only because when I first got with Little Big Town, my initial email that I got to audition, it said, "We're looking for recording members." So once I got the gig and I knew we were going into the studio a few months later, I needed to, I hadn't recorded much. So this was about 5 years ago. So I just started, I was like, man, well, I need to start recording at home so I can at least know what I'm getting myself into. So I just started recording at home, and that thing kind of grew, and I started realizing, like, whoa, understanding drums under mics is a whole different skill set, and how to meet needs personally and serve artists in that way is like a whole different arena. So I've fallen in love with it, and it's been really cool during this time to have another creative outlet. Since we can't play live shows, it's like I get to meet needs at home in my studio. So it's a huge learning curve, but I'm enjoying it, and happy to be a part of this conversation today. It's gonna be cool to learn some stuff.
Very cool. Thank you. We appreciate it. And Luke, how about you?
Oh, hello again.
Yep.
Yeah, my name is Luke Muller. I'm a utility musician, which basically just means you can play one instrument okay, and then you own a bunch of other instruments. So I've spent the last 10 or 15 years on the road touring with different acts. Started getting into some remote recording a couple of years back. And then about 2 years ago, realized a niche thing for myself was to create string sections for people. So violin, viola, cello. And I track all that remotely. And it's been something that's been really helpful for me to keep my brain learning new things all the time. And it's just finding that niche of getting a string section in. You usually need to pay 4 people, get a recording studio, and finding a way to do all of that myself and keep costs down and find work for myself whilst putting others out of work. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, thanks for joining. I guess everyone here came from the live side first, it seems, and then moved to the doing some recording projects in person with other people, and then the topic that we have today of remote recording is, I guess, the next step. Is which was the hardest step for you guys to make, going from live to studio, or from studio with a bunch of your peers to trying to figure out how to do this stuff remotely, and just I'm curious about that transition and when it first happened. Anybody like to jump in on that one?
I will, Tim.
I will. Go ahead,
Okay.
Theo.
Well, I find for me that always being a live musician, playing the honky tonks on Lower Broadway and getting asked over the years to join in Nashville sessions, that was an experience in itself. But I had always had the bug to try to get my own studio because I played so many instruments, and Nashville just kind of knew me as the guitar player. And so most of the sessions I did on big records were, just playing guitar. And when I actually talked to Kenny after moving up here to Chatham from Nashville after 23 years, Kenny felt my pain. He kind of knew deep down inside that I had that burning love for wanting to figure out how to do that. But the thing that scared me was too many knobs and buttons and things that you could do wrong to mess the whole session up instantly. And Brother Kenny said, dude, I can have you up and running in 3 hours and you won't be scared at all. And if you are, hit the space bar, go up to edit undo, and you can fix any problem that you have. And so once he started showing me the safest way to record, I think the biggest thing for me was to not lose the fun in creating the music by being so worried about being a quote engineer. So, you know, and through that, within the last year, Kenny and I have actually started doing a lot of tracks for people where I'm actually tracking all the instruments, and then we send the track back to the artist, they put their vocal on it, and then Brother Kenny mixes it for them. So through this uncertain time, Kenny and I have been really blessed to have that work on the side. That's certainly not our normal workload that we do, but yet it's brought a lot of fun for both of us, and some killer hang time. And of course, it's been a great learning curve for me as well. Every time I'm with Kenny, I learn something new. And so it's pretty remarkable, and I'm definitely blessed by that.
Well, I can't, the problem with hanging out with Johnny is he's always asking me to show him guitar licks, and I don't understand that, but, you know, anyway, but yeah, Johnny and I have probably cut 60 songs in the past 8 months, and thank goodness for Dropbox. You know, years ago, you either had to have a runner take a reel-to-reel tape over to another studio if somebody was playing, and you know that now all you have to do is point and click. And thank goodness for Dropbox and the electronic technology that we have today. It has made it a lot easier, and obviously editing now is click and point and click rather, and it's just so easy now. But the biggest thing for me as a live engineer was when I would go into the studio, I would have to give myself a break when I would get home on Sunday, because 3 days or 4 days during the busy season, you're constantly, as a live engineer, and Keo, you can relate to this, you're always wanting to feel that thump. You know, you're always moving some air, whether you've got 10,000 or 50,000 people behind you. And that was the biggest thing for me to overcome, was trying not to get things too loud in the studio. And my friend that taught me a lot about recording, he helped me get over that pretty quick. So I just found that giving myself a little bit of a break between the live side, mixing a huge festival, and going home and trying to mix a ballad without feeling that air moving that was the biggest challenge for me. Frequencies, actually where to layer things and stuff like that came pretty easy from being an engineer. But my biggest challenge was not feeling the air moving in the studio, going, oh, I feel like I'm standing on one leg. So that was the hardest for me.
Very nice. Hubert, I saw you smile on the comment about not worrying about the engineering and maintaining the feel of the song. Did that hit you in a certain way there? Seemed like it clicked the box for you.
Absolutely. I've had, I would say, 2 hurdles. One being the technology side of things, because it's a whole new ball game, opening up a DAW and like getting levels right and figuring out, you know, as a drummer, some people, they don't want mixed tracks. They kind of just maybe want bare bones tracks. But also you got to be able to, you know, use plugins and create a vision along with what you're playing and send that as well. So that was a hurdle. Another hurdle I feel like is being able to capture energy without a visual. So when you're playing live, you can you have, you know, at your disposal, you can perform it, and people are perceiving what you're doing from the way you look and energy that you're giving. But when you're Dropboxing, like Kenny said, some tracks, they don't see what you look like, and or what gear you're playing, or how many other people are in an arena. It's just about, hey, do these files speak to me? Do they capture energy? So as a drummer, it was more of like, is my vocab capturing energy adequately, or am I overplaying for a recorded situation? Is my dynamic matching? Are my tones adequate for what the vision of the artist was? So that hurdle and the technology hurdle was probably the biggest transitions, I'd say, for me.
Very cool. Keo, Luke, anything to add on those?
For me, it's funny because so I moved here. I moved to Nashville like 2000, 2001. I can't remember. Can't remember. Anyway, one of those, and I just remember just like going into the studio, and just seeing all the microphones that were used for the drums, and then how do I bring all those microphones into my house? How do I afford this? One, two, I'm gonna get divorced, and where is this gonna go in my tiny apartment? So, so that was the biggest thing for me, which is watching that whole, how do I take Ocean Way or Sound Emporium or someplace like that, and then make it into my little space. And then the hurdle of just going, man, I don't have these mics, I don't have this console, I don't have that engineer. So now I need to learn how to be an engineer. So I hooked up with like Shannon Forrest and Hubert, and I have a buddy, Lester Stell, guys like that who were doing home studio stuff. And you just go, all right, how do I do this? And man, it's not easy, but with a little bit of direction, it really calmed me. And so once I got over the hurdle of just like the gear aspect of it, and then it came to like, okay, playing. All right, so what do I do? Do I send people 5 different versions of something? Do I send them 2? Do I send them 1? Do I send them a video with it? All those things started to happen because you're like, oh man, and then you're playing by yourself, and you're like, man, me and the clique, I thought we were friends because I play drums. I'm like, man, maybe me and the clique aren't friends. so it's like, those were all those things. And Luke, don't laugh. You've probably heard the clique if you play drums. Anyway, but it's like, it's that whole thing though. You start to kind of second guess yourself. So it's funny. You're diving into a relationship with something and that doesn't really talk back to you. So you have to just try things until people start to hire you. And the more that what they hire you for is the thing you start to focus on, so that you can keep doing that, as well as still trying to work on the other stuff that you don't know very much about, which is why you hit your friends up and you're like, hey buddy, I can't get Ableton to work, or I can't get this kick thing to work.
Yes.
So, you know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing. So this little panel thing that we're doing, what's so great about it is that if you don't have friends like we do, which I'm very fortunate to have some amazing friends who do what we do. If you don't have that, you have this now that's going to help you out with that. So, but anyway, that was the biggest hurdle for me, was just like, taking everything and basically putting it into a spare bedroom. So yeah.
Keo, you bring up something that I think we'll probably get into a little bit more lately, but you're talking about your friendship and animosity with the clique there. But when you're doing stuff for people that aren't in the room with you or aren't in the studio, at that point, you don't have someone telling you, I want the drum part to be this or that. So you're basically your own producer for the drum part. Do you just go with it, or do you have a few conversations with people first, or what's the approach to deal with that?
I ask for a reference. What do you want this to be like? Because that always helps. And then if you get one, great. You do, and if I get one, I'll do something just like the reference, and I'll do something nothing like the reference, and that way they have it.
Gotcha.
If I don't get a reference, then I will try. If I'm having fun with it, I'll do as many as 5 different takes of just different things, and it's mostly a verse, chorus, kind of a thing, because like if you like what nowadays you can cut and paste stuff. So if you have 3 or 4 different versions of a verse, you can you should be happy with that. If you're not, then you're picky as hell, and I'm a horrible drummer. Which, let's just face it, I'm a horrible drummer, but you're also picky. But it's going to be that. It's a thing where the producing yourself is maybe giving them options so you don't go crazy. If that makes any sense. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. I'm sure we'll come back to some more of that, but that one, it kind of came to mind when you were talking about that conversation with the click. So, so, so Luke,
it's lined up.
Luke,
it's
were you
lined up.
Yeah, you could grade it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Luke, were you into the technical side of things before you started doing this, or did you have to learn it to get to the point where you could do remote recording?
Oh, mate, I'm so technical. I've always had a fascination with technology, but I'm not very good at it, which is like a few things in my life. But I think for me, like Keo was mentioning, and a lot of the other guys on the panel here have mentioned, friends and whatnot. I don't have a lot of friends, but I'll tell you, Google and YouTube are amazing. If I'm ever, I've definitely called up some friends to help me with some things, but in general, if I'm like sitting on a door, the amount of times I've just spent an hour like trying to go, how do I get this edit to work? Man, I just go to Google suddenly and went, how do I crossfade, blah, blah, blah. And there's someone that's made a tutorial video for it. And you just say, oh my gosh, okay, that's just saved me hours. So I think over the past couple of years, it's been that kind of thing, looking over the shoulder of engineers and producers when I'm lucky enough to be in other studios, not doing it at my house. Always going into the room to like, even when we're finished our parts, always like just sit there hanging my head over going, oh, all right. That's where I learned about like shortcuts with keyboard stuff and all of that and going, oh, there's a way quicker way to do this. You don't have to use the mouse. You can just quickly do it that way. So I think it's just like a never ending process of learning, but trying not to be overwhelmed with it. Because you can, again, literally find your way out of any hole on YouTube now. Like you just look up a tutorial, someone will show you how to do it. Someone else has run into that problem.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you. Andy, I'm going to turn it over to you for a moment.
Thanks, Tim. I've got so many questions just from that initial sort of 20-minute of just chat. And I guess just to keep on the thread of what we're doing now, what is that relationship between if you're working with a producer or if you're the producer and you're working with an artist? How do you kind of manage that triangle, if you like? And I'll extend that question to maybe if you're the producer where you're in charge of the mix and you have to work with maybe a singer, how do you align their expectations or help them out with how to record in their environment? Because maybe that's something that you've learned the technology and the recording aspects, but maybe the singer has no idea and they might be in a room that's not right or something like that. How do you work? How does that relationship work where you can work with someone else? And I'm going to open that to the floor for anyone who wants to jump on that one.
Actually, I can jump on that first. I think with what Kenny and I have been doing, I have a lot of artists that send me just a guitar vocal and they let the door wide open for me to be creative and to maybe excite them with something that, well, I've never heard my song done like that before. Most of the time, though, I do ask for a reference. What do you want this song to sound like? Do you have a reference, a song that I could listen to that you want it to sound closely like? But at the same time, in working with, I'm always working with young guitar players who actually sing. And you really don't want to step on their artistry either, because art is art. And sometimes what we hear is not necessarily what's in that artist's head. Whether it be good, bad, or indifferent, you still have to be the guy to tell them one way or the other. But you also don't want to squash their artistry. So I think there's a fine line in what you look for in trying to help somebody without squashing their whole, their whole view on what a song is supposed to be, especially if they've written it. How can you tell them it's supposed to be something different? So I've always found that to be a very hard thing. And as a matter of fact, I had to bounce off Brother Kenny last week helping a young boy out. And it's, you know, sometimes you just need advice from a peer or someone you can call, and thank God for good friends. So, I'll just leave it at that if you boys want to carry forth.
Well, just for fun, what's the craziest kind of reference you've ever been sent where you're just like, wow, I was not expecting that, and it's just totally out of the ballpark?
Guitar vocals where the vocal isn't even in the same key. And you're, you know, I mean, I've dealt with it all in this past year, I must tell you. And it's, you know, you just kind of look up at the good Lord and say, all right, I'm going to need a lot of help on trying to put one down. But somehow it always works out in the end, doesn't it, Kenny?
I'm sorry about that. I'll try not to send you those in the future. That's my bad. But yeah,
I just
Kenny,
got a quick question, Johnny. So do you want me to do this in the key of the guitar or the key of the vocal? Is that the question that you asked?
Hey man, can you line their vocal up and kind of put it in better tune for me? You know,
Oh, there you go. Fair enough.
So is anyone else sort of can anyone else speak to that relationship?
Yeah.
Hubert.
So I've grown to take this approach. When I think about it, like when I go get a haircut, right? Everyone's really opinionated about how they want their hair cut. But if you could do it on your own, you would. But you don't want to sit in the barber chair and say, hey man, give me a number 2 right here and then fade it and then a number 1. You just kind of want to sit down and get an adequate haircut that makes you look better than what you really do. So I choose to spend my time like looking at context clues. So I'm not going to ask a bunch of questions. I'm just going to spend my time like, I've really benefited from being very diverse, from being in Nashville. Like I play a lot of country, mostly country, a lot of rock. I come from a funk background. So like I spend my time listening to these things. So when, I'm a nerd. So if you send me an email and say you want me to play on your track, I'm gonna see how you dress. I'm gonna listen to your music in the past, like the way that you choose to like sing your representative. And I'm gonna use all of those context clues to point me in a direction of a reference. So you don't have to give me a ton of direction. Now, that doesn't always go well. There might be like 3 or 4 revisions, but for the most part, I found if I just use the context clues and like prepare like super versatile ears, big ears with the way that I listen in like not a lot of people can send a reference. I work with a lot of people who they're just like, hey man, be creative. But you don't really want me to be creative. You don't want me to bring out my 10-inch tom and play a bunch of cymbals all over this song. You want me to give you what makes you feel like it's a great song, something that you can reference. And you might not know that, but it's my job to be like versatile in what I study so you can sit down and get a good haircut, if that makes sense.
That's brilliant answer. Yeah. Sorry, Kia.
No, I know. I'm just agree with him. I said, yeah, that's totally the way to do it. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, there's no wrong way to do it. There's no right way to do it. You just do it and go, yeah, cool. So,
brilliant. And Kenny, can you speak to have you got any opinion on that? But also because you've obviously been in the industry like over 40 years with the technical aspect. Can you talk a little bit about like if maybe you have to work with a singer who you know doesn't know what a sound interface is and not sure what mic to get? Like how can you approach that situation?
Yeah, well, you know, coming from the live side of things, there are a lot of factors that don't apply in the studio when you're mixing live, such as the volume of the PA versus feedback. So, you know, for starters, if you're getting feedback in the studio, then you definitely need to back up and start again for, you know, whatever reason. But I've worked for singers and I've mixed the Grand Ole Opry before and worked there for on and off for 8 to 10 years. And when I wasn't on the road, so we would get the gamut of singers that would sing like this, or, you know, actually cup the microphone like this, which is the worst thing to do live because it destroys anything, any of the air passing through the capsule. You know, you might as well be singing into the palm of your hand at that point. So you go from Kenny Rogers, who used to hold the microphone down here, right at his chest, and then the band would have to play underneath his vocals. So that's always tough. I've had a lot of singers that did do that. I work for a guy now named Phil Basso, and Phil is he's a great vocalist, and he's a very strong vocalist. I'm currently using 935s on his vocal, and no matter what we do, there's always a Sennheiser 935 on Phil's vocal, and it just matches his vocal. And fortunately, he gives me a lot of gain and stays up on the microphone for me. And due to the technology, the second part of the question, years ago, if you watch old television shows, anything from Soul Train to Hee Haw to Johnny Cash, they all had the old, even Bob Barker on, the old, whatever show that was, I can't remember. Let's Make a Deal or whatever it was, I don't know.
Right.
They all had those long pencil thin condenser mics with the little bitty capsule on the top, and you could hear for miles on those things. So finding the right environment to get the right sound to help someone help you, that's the main thing. If you explain to them that you just need to help you achieve the level, first of all, that you need, you have to have good track levels. So if you're using a compressor on the track, you're not pulling up the noise floor instead of the vocal, first of all. But technology has really changed as far as the live side of it, which has only made the studio side of it that much better. So the advances made toward capsule technology and the patterns that you can now do, and I can't stress enough the best two things that you have at your disposal at any time, whether it's live or in the studio, is an EQ and a high pass filter. If you can learn how to use those two things, anything that you do, whether it's live or tracking, they are your best friends doing it.
Brilliant. So what about then sort of a startup setup, if you like? So when you guys got started, and obviously like see Kenny's got a studio behind him, and like Keo, obviously you've got a bit of a studio there. So what is kind of like, think of it from a startup, what is the sort of the first few bits that you would get, and then what would you choose to expand on from that? And what would you hope to achieve from it? And I'm going to extend that as well to even rooms, because obviously like you can learn the DAW, you can get a good interface, you can have a good mic, but then if you're playing in your bathroom, you're going to have a little bit of trouble there. So like, could you speak a little bit about, how you kind of found those challenges and how you addressed them and researched them? And Luke was nodding away there, so I'm going to go to Luke first for that one, please.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I mean, I've been through a couple of different interfaces and whatnot. So first thing was an interface. And I think a lot of people will be used to, like, if you buy anything on the internet now, you want to check for reviews and things like that. I mean, you can read as many reviews as you want about audio, but it's the person listening that is reviewing it. So you ask different friends, you try things out yourself. Kenny was saying the best two things there, EQ and high pass. I would add your ears as well. Like if you add those to that, that's everything you need to kind of get everything done. I definitely went down the path, first of all, of thinking if I spend more money, I'm getting something better. That's not always true. So as far as gear is concerned, I just slowly got an interface that worked, then found a microphone that worked. And then as far as rooms are concerned, for me, I play color instruments mainly, so I approach things a little differently with my recording. If I can get it as clean and dry as possible for that person to mix with, that's the best. So wherever I'm recording, it doesn't really matter. I just know I can throw a mattress up here, a blanket over there, and just keep it pretty dead. And I leave it to the producer to like do whatever they want with. But that's kind of, for me, playing color instruments. I know it's a little different for the other guys.
Yeah. How do you other guys approach?
Yeah, so I have two really good friends. One guy's a drummer, a dude named Miles McPherson. He's a really big session guy in town. And I said, Miles, man, I want to start recording drums at my home. I said, I got like $1,000. He said, dude, leave Guitar Center right now and wait until you get maybe double or triple that amount of money and then start buying drum mics, because you don't want people to judge you off of like a faulty product. And then I called my other buddy, Josh, who's our sound engineer for Little Big Town. And Josh said, dude, go in there and buy what you can afford and start now, because there's so much to learn. And then when you realize something is a problem and you're knowledgeable enough to understand, like, wait a minute, I don't have enough isolation with these mics. I'm like, all of my mics are super loud, like Kenny was talking about. When you start realizing certain things, that's when it's time to maybe upgrade, when you can understand. That way you can get in now, you start learning now, because that learning curve is formidable. It's a real foe, right? So once you start realizing, like, oh, wait a minute, my sound is too big for certain tracks I'm getting. I need to get like some type of sound isolation, maybe a different room, or these, I understand this mic enough to know that I need a more expensive one. So you know what you're getting, and you're not just like spending a ton of money. So in short, I say, don't be so concerned with keeping up with what everyone has. Like, let your knowledge and your feel for what you're doing and your understanding, like that be like the gauge and the governor for how fast you go. Because gear is a never ending thing. I don't have one musician friend that says, you know what? I got all the gear that I need. And I got a lot of successful friends, but I've never heard one say, yep, today I got everything I need and I'm good. So, yeah.
I do have something to add, if I can.
Go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, I was going to say the biggest thing about working live or working in the studio, your job as the engineer is to make whatever channel or whatever track you're working on sound as natural as possible. If you don't know frequency response, you should learn it. It's worth the time. You should know the high and low pass of every instrument that you are recording. That way your tracks going in are going to sound that much better. If you are, as an engineer, your job is to reinforce the sound that's coming off the stage, not to color it, but to make it sound as natural as possible. And there are times where that's just not possible. We've all been there. But in the studio, to make something sound as natural as possible going in, you're only going to have that much more fun with it on the way out.
Yeah, true. Yeah. For me, it was very interesting. I started very small. I started with 4 channels of drums, and that was it. I was basically just gonna go kick. I was the Glenn Johns method: kick, 2 overheads, snare drum. And so I started there, learned everything about that. I did that for 3 weeks. And then I added a bottom snare mic. And I recorded like that for 3 weeks. And then I added tom mics. I recorded for that for like 3 weeks. And then I added a room mic. And then I changed the position of the drums in the room. Probably is a lot of times, as much as up until yesterday, actually, to still try to find like the right, spot. Yeah, I sent Hubert a photo. I was like, hey, man, how's this look now? But I did that, and then my room is small. It's my spare bedroom. So I went through about 25 different snare drums, and I found the 5 that do the best thing for this room recording-wise. And it was really strange because it wasn't, your typical like, oh my God, the Black Beauty sounds great in here, or the Tama Bell brass. It was like, oh, this 12-inch snare drum that I made is the rockin' snare drum in this room, or the, you know, cheap acrylite is a snare drum that sounds great for recording in this room. And so now I have like a template of like snare sounds that I go to, tom sounds that I go to, and all that. And then once I got into that, people started to want MIDI recordings. And so then it was like, because they were like, well, we just want your performance. We don't care about your sounds. So then I ended up getting an electronic kit just for that. So, and I'm just basically just sending them off whatever. And then sometimes people go, oh yeah, we want your sounds. And but most of them go, we just want performance. So you just send over the MIDI track. So anyway, but it's just like, that was my slow go into getting to the point where I am now, where I have options. I tried my best to learn about frequencies. I'm still learning about all of it. But the biggest thing was just trial and error, just trying as much stuff as possible. Just say, oh man, let's do this sub kick. Let's put the sub kick on it. Let's put the sub kick off of it. Let's try this microphone. Let's try that microphone. Let's try my iPhone is a great alternative room sound. So a lot of times I'll record and record it into my memos on my phone, drop it in, and it's like a different room sound. It's the nastiest room sound in the world, but some people like it, you know. So it was just things like that. I felt like were the part of the fun of growing into of the whole thing. Yeah, that's it.
It's a great answer. I just wrote down there, does anyone ever ask you for MIDI recordings? And you went straight onto it and answered it. But that's a great thing about the iPhone, because that leads us to a question that we've got here, because I want to encourage the audience to ask some questions. So Jay Hilton is asking, does anyone have any advice for someone who wants to create a musical number with parts, both vocal and instruments, recorded on iPhones and laptops? How do you improve the sound of that material? Is it piano click track? And the best thing to send out to the artist? Not quite sure about that last bit, but is there a way that you kind of mix two technologies where you can use like an iPad or some different software with that as well and mix it in?
As long as you know where the tracks are starting and stopping, and you can line anything up, but I don't think that I would want an iPad or iPhone track on my ballad if I was trying to make an artist happy, you know, with a ballad. But there again, there are technologies, and there could be guys out there cutting great tracks like that we just don't know about. I'm not saying it can't be done. I personally would not prefer it, but if that's what the artist wants, then obviously you have to do that. But the advance in technologies these days is so good that a lot of people can take a USB microphone or an interface and record a track into a laptop and send it to you, and you actually sometimes get lucky and get a pretty decent track. But it's not for me, I will say that.
Anyone else want to speak to that? I'll agree. I'm going to jump to another question then from Nadine. And
yeah, everybody agrees. Yeah, that, yeah.
So go on. Sorry, Kaya.
I was saying yes, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. Yes.
Cool. So another question from Nadine is, with the shift to remote work during the global pandemic, what is the one piece of advice you had to learn the hard way that you wish you would have known before? So has this thrown something up, this situation? Oh, Hubert has got his hands. Yes, go on.
Okay. The hardest thing to do is to record video of the exact audio take, because a lot of people now are wanting video with audio. Like last night, Little Big Town, we had a performance on Jimmy Fallon, The Tonight Show, and we actually recorded that at the beginning of the pandemic when they first canceled our tour for the new single. But it was my first time actually. I was like, oh yeah, I get a light ring. I know how to record my drums. This will be great. No. So I didn't realize, like, man, when you're home and you're tracking, like Kenny says, you can just hit that space bar, start again, you know. But to get a video take, it just puts like a whole added amount of pressure. And then trying to get them to communicate with each other. Me and Keo and our friends, like we talk about this, and we have Zoom calls about Soundflower and how to be able to communicate if you're doing a remote session with video. So that aspect is super important to get a hold of in today's world. And I wish I would have known just a little bit more about it before now. The nightmare.
I'm actually going to agree with you on that, brother. I've had some issues.
I think we've lost him there, have we? Is that?
He said he had some issues.
Johnny
He had some issues and then he disappeared. I think we know what the issues are.
It's an example.
Okay, Tim, over to you, please. I'll let you take over.
Yeah, when Johnny gets back, we'll go back to that one. That's actually a good segue of the services that you guys use to communicate with clients. But I'm really curious about, away from the technical side, what are the services where you find these remote clients that you work with, and how do you go about acquisition and convincing them to use your services? I'm really curious about that part.
Yeah, Johnny and I have, of course, Johnny does the YouTube Live every Sunday on Johnny Highland Official on Facebook, and it's broadcast on YouTube too, I think. But he lets people know that we're willing to track their songs and mix them. So just having all the viewers that Johnny has around the world has kept us really busy during this whole pandemic, with him saying, hey, if you've got a song that you've always wanted to record but never have, we can make that dream come true. So fortunately for us, we do have that outlet. Had we not, the 3 or 4 friends that I've talked into recording their songs that we pretty much did for, lunch. If we hadn't had that outlet of Johnny having such a large following on social media, then I honestly will be interested to know how everyone else responds. But luckily for us, we had a world famous guitar player with a pretty large social media following, and when he said, "Hey, we can record your songs," people started jumping on it. So that's a beautiful thing, and we're still working on songs for people, and that's just been a real blessing during this strange time we're all living in.
Hey, Kenny, can you guys hear me?
Yep. We can.
Okay, for some reason it's saying that my video has been disabled. I don't know why.
We can hear you, so we can go with that. Maybe we can figure that out in the background, but we can definitely hear you. The last thing we heard was you had issues, and then you gave us an example of the issues with the video. There it is.
Hey.
Yeah, saying that the host disabled me or something, and I was like, well, I don't know how to turn myself back on.
There you go. We got you now.
I do
if you want good guitar lessons or good tracks, you call Johnny, but if you want video, don't call Johnny.
No, that thing was very, very hard for me. And I wished I had known about an iRig, or there was this one little cable that I needed to do a thing for True Fire for their festival. And, I've done a bunch of instructional courses with them, but they did this big, festival. Man, I bought a 4-track. I bought all kinds of cabling to hook up to my studio and just try to get an actual live feed of me using a track and playing to it and singing and all that stuff. It just did not work for me at all. And it was one little 2-inch cable I was missing that, because of the pandemic, everybody had bought everybody out of this little specific cable. So Hubert, you're right, buddy. It's very, very hard to get video these days. And I wished I had known about the iRig, because that actually saved the day in the long run. And I'm slowly figuring it out now.
Good.
Yeah, I want to share. A lot of people will get mad at me for letting the cat out the bag as far as the question regarding getting work recording. I found myself, a lot of my own friends wouldn't call me to record in town because there's so many guys that can do it very well. And it's based on relationships. And then I had a buddy tell me about a website called airgigs.com. Airgigs is kind of like Facebook, where you put up a profile and you say what you've done and what the service you offer, and people can hire you, and you don't even hear about the request until they put money in your PayPal. So if you set your rate at $100 a song, they pay the money. You tell them on your page, I get tracks done in 2 days, and so every time you work with someone, they can rate and review you. So what happened with me is, I think I got in when it was still kind of a baby website, and I was able to kind of get a ton of positive reviews. So when people look up, I need a drummer, my name is at the top because I've just done so many at this point. And it's not because they were all amazing tracks, and I don't know magic. It's just because I really work to serve and try to really figure this thing out. So that website has been a blessing to me. My family has been especially now, it's pretty much most of my work. And I've even gotten into outsourcing. So someone will contact me with just a vocal, and then I'll use my friends to play on the stuff, and I'll kind of put it together and produce it in a sense, and then give it back. So that AirGigs is an amazing resource if you're trying to do this thing remote, if you're serious about it, and you can be consistent with it, and you don't got to worry about chasing people for money, which I hate to do, right? So that's an awesome opportunity that's out there.
Very nice. Thank you. Luke, you look like you had something on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very similar situation to Hubert there. And there's a couple of sites out there now doing stuff for recording. Spotify just bought a site called soundbetter.com, and very similar to Hubert, I got in a couple of years ago and started building a profile on there. And now if you search string arrangements, I'll be higher at the top of the search list. I will say I spent a lot of time trying to work out what the algorithms were for this search capabilities, for the searching on there. And it comes down to a couple of different things: how quickly you respond to clients, how complete your profile is, all of those things. These are all things that we would never think of as a musician. We just go, how do I play my instrument? And that's it. You've really got to think outside the box. So I started realizing I need to have email alerts ding on my phone because I need to respond to those emails as quick as possible. I don't really care about Auntie Susan emailing me. I don't need to get back to her, but for work, I need to get on that real quick. So I think the biggest thing for me with string sections was literally someone can contact me from around the world and I'll send them a string section within 2 hours. Now, that's only because I don't have kids. So I'm able to, as soon as I get that email, go, I'm doing it. I just set up straight away. I don't feel like doing it straight away, but man, if you get on that straight away, people are blown away. And I think the more proactive, the quicker you can be, the better quality tracks you'll start producing too. You'll find ways to streamline things.
Very nice. Very nice. 2 hour string section. That's great. He'd call you later.
It's pretty good. That's why I like him.
Keo, what about you? Where are you finding the tracks you're working on?
What's that? What's work? For me, what's funny is my whole thing is I just joined some of those deals like air gigs and all that. And honestly, I've gotten zero work from it because Hubert's on there. But a lot of my work has come from opening bands, from being out on the road. I ended up chatting it up with a lot of those dudes, and a lot of times they're wanting to come to Nashville and do stuff, and they either come to Nashville and I go to a real studio with them, or nowadays they don't come to Nashville, but they still want tracks or whatever. So they just go, "Hey man, like, can you record this?" And I go, "Yeah." I have a buddy Dan that hit me up, and I played one thing for him, and then he was like, "That was really fast and really good. Can I sing you 12 more?" I go, "Yeah." so those, it's those kind of things that have been happening for at least for me. It's just relationships, and then I have some songwriter friends here that basically were like, "Hey man, like, I don't have a pub deal anymore, but I'm still writing songs. Can you play drums on this for whatever?" I go, "Yeah." And then recently, since I have the MIDI kit we were talking about earlier, I have friends who go, "Man, like, I got the sounds, I just can't play drums. Like, can you come to my house and play this electronic kit?" And I go, "How about I just play from my house? I just send you the MIDI file." Even better. So that's become a thing that I never thought I would be able to do, because I'd be too broke to pay for an electronic drum kit, or too prideful to have one. But now I've learned that is actually a really, really smart investment and a good move for people, for a lot of people who have their own sounds, or who have an electronic kit that want you to come to their place and play it, because so now it's like, well, I can just do it here. But a lot of the stuff I do is just word of mouth, like random things. Like Bit Kenny sent something the other day. It was like, "Hey man, hey brother, can you play on this? I just wanted to rock." He's go, "Okay." So but so that's helped. And then obviously, not that obviously, but I was lucky enough to play on 3 or 4 of the past Kev Mo records that did well and were recognized well. So, and one of the records, he was very nice and said that basically my drumming was kind of the inspiration of making it, taking it from being an acoustic record to being a full band record. And so that little acknowledgement definitely helped with people going, "Oh, this Keo guy, never heard of her. Oh yeah, let's call this person." So that helped. So yeah. Anyway.
Very good, very good. So now I'm curious. You've done these things. Sorry, Kenny, go ahead. I'll come back to what I had.
I just wanted to touch on something Keo said real quick. Somebody called him and said, "Hey, can you come over here and play this?" Can't speak a lot about this right now, but some friends that actually Tim and I have in common, they're working on some software right now that will bring a virtual session to your house in real time. So if they really want you on the session, they are able to, much like we're doing this right now, they are able to have you join the session in real time. They're working out some latency issues right now, but they're so close that pretty soon we are all going to be able to sit in our houses and play parts for people that are doing parts around the world. It's not going to be the old, "Hey, let me send you an MP3, track me something, and Dropbox it back to me." Can't really say any more about it right now, but that technology is getting ready to come to fruition.
That'll be interesting. Absolutely. And maybe that'll to negate my next question in the future, but as it applies to right now, when we don't have quite that capability totally in place, let's say you send, I think you guys said you send 2 or 3 styles or options for tracks. What if once they get it, it's close? What do you do for revisions? Do you charge for revisions, or how do you set that up? Do you have, okay, here's my stab at it, you get 2 revisions, or just curious what the setup is for something like that?
Personally, real quick, sorry, Hubert, I didn't see you. Personally, at this day and time, I think we're lucky to be getting the work that we're getting. And so if somebody wants a couple of revisions, I'm sitting over here in my fuzzy bus pants anyway. So what the heck? I'm drinking coffee, mixing, doing what I love. So yeah, if you're willing to help me out, make a living, and I'll give you a few, revisions within reason. Sorry, Hubert, go ahead.
Dude, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Luke was talking about the algorithm. If you think about algorithm as a principle, meet needs, man. I think a lot of people are getting caught up on, I need to make this amount of money per track, and if you ask me to revise something, I'm going to charge you maybe 50% more because my time is worth. If playing music was a depth chart, like it'd be really hard to get the best gig, right? So, out of gratefulness, like for me, I try to work around the algorithm by being like, hey man, I'm not happy until you're happy. And I'm giving you a guarantee. If you don't like it, don't even pay for it, because I believe in my work ethic and I'm grateful.
Right.
And let's not forget, I'm choosing to do this. It's what I get to do. It's not like, I could do a lot of other things, and there are other people who don't even have a way to work right now. So,
Amen.
A revision, come on, man. I'm gonna learn something. You're gonna push me. I look at it like, man, if you come with another request, that's another opportunity for me to learn a different approach that maybe I didn't think about. So let's see how this pans out. That's my attitude with revisions. I'll get on my high horse about that whole thing. Sorry.
Man, that's refreshing to hear. It's something that'd be nice to see in other industries as well, wouldn't it?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just tell them to call Hubert. When they like, man,
Yeah.
it's Hubert. Call Hubert. He's excited about it.
Yeah.
Very good. So how often do you get the request? Oh, go ahead, Luke.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to add to that what Hubert was saying. Like, I completely agree. And maybe to what you were just about to ask, Tim, like I always say, unlimited, I'm careful about my wording, but basically unlimited revisions until you're happy. But the history of the hundreds of tracks that you do, you look back and go, there was twice where I had someone that was just super picky about something that you go, you know what, that was just them. It wasn't anything I was doing. It was just, they couldn't decide what they wanted yet. And it took 6 totally different approaches. And eventually they were like, this is the one. You go, cool, not a problem. So like people getting hung up on what I want per track, blah, blah, blah. Man, if you cut that down to like some of the tracks that take you 10 minutes and some tracks that take you an hour, man, your hourly rate is killer. So what do you care? You're at home, you're making music. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah, and I imagine most of the people that are reaching out they're reaching out to you guys because you have a vision that they may not have in the first place. So it keeps the revisions down.
mhm.
But go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Just one last thing. I would say with those revisions too, I think for everyone that's kind of worked in the industry for a while, you've played enough music, you've listened to enough music, references are great, but without sounding like a dick, 80% of the time, you're pretty sure you know what they want. So I'll give you 2 takes of pretty much what I think you'll want. And then I'll do 2 takes of what I would love to do. And I'll send 4 to you. Now you're probably going to use take 1 and take 2, but they might put a couple of things from take 3 and take 4 in there too. You're giving them everything they need. I see no troubles with kind of going, here's a couple of takes of what you need. And here's a couple of what I might want to do too. And whatever you use is like, what's it matter? It was 10 minutes extra of my time to do extra takes.
Right.
Nice. Hey, well, Kenny, I was going to say it may be a little bit different perspective for you because the guys that are playing, they have to come in and send back a guitar part or a drum part or a string part. When you receive something to mix, how well are the things organized already? You may receive 70 tracks and wonder which ones they want to use. Do you ever have any problem with getting things delivered cleanly and having a direction, or is it, let me look through this box and see what I can find?
Yes, actually, I have pulled up tracks that look like they were pulled out of a milk crate of microphone cables that were just tossed in there. And then you pick up one and you've got all of this stuff dangling below it. So that being said, most of the tracks that I do mix, I have been involved in some way. So been very fortunate there. There have been the cases where people have sent tracks and said, I'm just going to tell you up front, this is a mess, and I hope you can straighten it out. So fortunately, our tracking here lately that Johnny and I have been doing for people, Johnny is doing all of the tracking at his place because our studios are set up identically, right from the DAW to large screen monitors. Of course, he has to have a larger monitor, being slightly sight impaired, and the monitoring is very important. Now, I myself use Neumann K120s. We just got Johnny a pair of K120s, so now our studios, they sound a lot alike. So when Johnny now hears a track, because he would come to my house and hear the tracks that he'd cut, even raw, before we'd start, and he'd go, wow, that's just amazing. So having good tracks going in, as I said earlier, is very important, but I've had them both ways, and sometimes it really will give you a headache trying to figure out what somebody else has sent you, especially if they're not lining up. The most important thing you can do is tell someone, start the session from zero. It does not matter what DAW you are working in. If your session starts from zero, it's going to be very close, if not perfectly lined up, whether it's Pro Tools, Nuendo, Audacity, whatever, Logic. If that doesn't work for you, have them arm the track that they are sending with the MP3 that you're tracking to, and take a microphone and thump it, and you put a spike in both tracks. Then you unarm the track that they sent, and then you have a spike mark in your track. You have a spike mark in the track that they sent you as well. So when they drop that back in, they can look at the reference MP3 and go, okay, great. If that doesn't work, then you tell that person that's tracking for you, I need you to come in on the one. I don't care if you give me one string, one chord, even if they're not playing until the 16th bar. If they come in on the one, you obviously don't have to use it, but I need you to look at that track and give me a one, so I know where your track's going to line up. And then don't stop your track. You let it record to the end of the song. So you run into a lot of challenges like that when you get people that don't understand the lining of tracks and that sort of thing. So if you take a few minutes to explain that to them, that doesn't happen too often. Most of the people that I use for overdubs, I've used a lot, and they all get that. And but the main thing is to be as clear as you can. If you're accepting tracks from someone else, then you need to possibly adjust your price, because you have to sit there for hours and hours editing their tracks to make them usable. And if you can receive better tracks, then the customer will get a better track on the way out, and then it's a lot less work for you the closer the track can be. Now, yes, you're always going to have to nudge something here or there, even if someone's playing with a click. That's a whole nother subject, hopefully we'll touch on a little bit. But again, being organized, doing your tracks, whether you're sending tracks to someone for them to use or they're sending them for you to use, communication is key on what you want the song to sound like, how much free reign do I have arranging your song, if that's the case, if they don't know. And just those sort of little things will help your project move right along, so you don't have 30 emails a day going back and forth about the same thing, but you're just talking about it two different ways. So communicate, get to know your clients and know what they like, and explain to them that I really want to do this for as cheaply and as fast for you as I can and have a great product, but your tracks are killing me. You're killing me, Smalls, with your tracks, man. I can't make heads or tails of them. So if you can help them out, that's the best thing. So hopefully the people that are listening, that are sending tracks to people to get mixed or whatever, make sure your tracks are in, do some good housekeeping. Your engineer will thank you, and it'll cost you less money in the long run.
Good. Andy, we have any questions coming in that we need to jump on there?
I just love Kenny's point there. It's a bit like being an accountant, isn't it? Where you walk in with a carry bag full of receipts and drop them on the accountant, and they're like, that's going to cost a fortune for me to put these in order. It's a similar thing. We have a question come in from an anonymous attendee, and it's to the drummers. So have you guys had to deal with any phase when multi-miking yourselves, and did it take long to deal with, and is that what made you resort to the MIDI kit? So I guess like on the toms, when they're all close mic'd, have you ever found any phasing issues or any way that you've overcome that?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, Hubert probably has
he's
more on
going.
that. Yeah, Hubert, you go first.
Yes. I've been coming from like what Keo was talking about earlier. You know, you don't want to start with a ton of mics. You kind of work your way up. But I've moved into more using like a kick in and a kick out and a sub kick. Sub kicks are great, but you start getting into phase issues. I use Logic as my DAW, and they have like it's a gain button that you can highlight and kind of flip the phase and get things to work. So it's like literally one click away. And like Luke was saying, you can go on YouTube and find that video. That's what I did. It saved me a lot of time and a lot of frustration, because what happens, you know, obviously they start canceling each other out, and you're like, what is happening to my low end? I got 3 kick mics and my kick sounds like this, but it's a phase issue. So yeah, that's the thing. But I know in Logic they have that gain button that you can hit and kind of flip the phase and get things in the right way.
That I never ran into phase issues, like, well, because one of the first things I did right off the bat was I was like, all right, what do I have to, you know, how do I set this up? When I was figuring out how to set it up, and obviously bottom snare drum mic, top snare drum mic, bottom snare drum mic out of phase. So that was the first thing right off the bat. I only use 2 kick drum mics, so I haven't had any issues with phasing there. But I also use a bigger diameter kick drums, so the microphones really aren't even that close either. Also, so I'm really working on that. One time I had a strange issue with an overhead and a kick drum doing a weird thing, and then that was resolved also because, you know, basically if you keep your overheads equal distance from the snare drum and the kick drum, you should never run into phase issues. And so that was a thing that I had to work on, and it also meant that for me, I also had my overheads too far in front of the kit, and I needed them to be closer into the kit. So, and then also, looks aren't important. You know, it was like I was like, oh, this looks great. Oh, you know, it was like I was like, oh, measuring it, okay. Oh, okay, that's where that's supposed to be. All right. And that was kind of, and that's how I ended up dealing with that. The MIDI kit just came out of as an extra tool for people to have, and for me, I wanted to learn something different. But also, once I got into using slate drums, I learned how to like do some like replacing, because sometimes I track something and say the snare drum was doing something funky, but the performance was great, so I would use the slate drums to just replace the sound. So yeah, Kenny had something to say there.
Yeah, I got something I was going to say, and I heard somebody say electronic drum kit earlier, but this hopefully we'll touch on that a little bit too. But I do have one thing to say for the engineers out there that are listening and struggling a little bit with your drum sound. The best thing you can do for yourself, if you have 12 tracks of live drums, close mic with overheads, whatever, you owe it to yourself to start with your kick drum and your overheads first. You will be so surprised what you are going to get out of your kit with the kick and the overheads. And then you can, if you're liking that, then you can start bringing in your snare, your hi-hat, whatever, to augment exactly what you want to hear a little bit of. But you really do owe it to yourself when you first break out that session and start listening to the drum kit. Start with your kick and your overheads first and see what you get. You'll be really surprised. And that is courtesy of my friend Steve Melton, the house engineer at Muscle Shoals for many, many years. That was the Muscle Shoals way for a lot of years. Kick, snare, and 2 overheads. So there you go. You can't argue with all those
totally.
great Aretha Franklin records and things like that came out of Muscle Shoals. The sounds were amazing.
Yeah, that was my whole thing. I kind of, Glenn John's, the Zeppelin record was basically kind of the same deal. And there were no close mics. It's only the snare drum was close mic in those days, for those. But so that was one of the things that I did for myself, and because of I knew about phasing and I knew about all that stuff, but I also wanted to make sure that I had everything right sound wise. I just didn't want to be like a technical guy. I also wanted things to sound right. So I was like, okay, so kick drum, overheads, snare. Okay, I'm gonna try, and I said it for 3 weeks, which is like no lie. But within those 3 weeks, I was trying different kick drums, different snare drums, different cymbals, all those different things because they all play into each other. Because for me, the drum kit is one instrument. It's many inputs, but it's one instrument. You don't play a guitar, and go, oh yeah, this one string. Let's make this one string louder. And you can if you're Mutt Lange, and you want to go in and record individual strings like that. But like the drum kit is played and performed, and to me should be, depending on what you're doing, should be recorded as one instrument as a whole. And then if you want to, affect or bring up the level of the snare drum or the kick or the overheads or whatever, then you have the option to do that with, obviously, as you add channels and it depends on how things are isolated. But I feel like, one of the things with drums is, and it gets lost sometimes, is that people forget that it is one instrument. It's just divided. It just can be divided into many different channels.
Yeah. Hey, Keo and Kenny, I think you guys said two things over the course of this conversation about the phase thing that I think when you put those things together is super important. Keo, you were talking about measuring the distance on your overheads, keeping them equal. The phase thing can still show up with the kick drum, and that's where Kenny's favorite tool, the high pass filter, is the most important thing to keep that phasing issue, because the low end is where you really feel that. So if you put what Kenny and Keo said together with three mics, the phase issue, you can almost eliminate it. But yep, absolutely. We're getting close to the end of time here. It went by really fast. I wonder if maybe we should just go around with a piece of advice from each of you on those watching and those who will watch in the future on how to be successful at either the music career or the remote recording, since that's the topic, or whatever you'd like to put in as your final notes here.
Okay, I'll go.
I'll start
first. First, I'm sorry.
Yep, go for it. You're good.
Okay.
I was going to say you anyway.
I was going to say, yeah. I was going to say, first of all, good to see all of you guys, and hope all of you are well. Hope everybody out there is well, and we will get through this. Trust me. So the biggest thing is, if you are doing the recording, if you are the engineer or you are the client for the engineer, communication is key. Make sure that the engineer or the producer, whoever you're hiring to help you with your project, knows exactly what you want. And if you can relay that, whether it's through a song, have the sample of the song, and that will help. Remember, good tracks in equals better tracks out, less time fixing things during the mix, that sort of thing. High pass filter and EQ really are your friends. Now, most engineers want raw tracks, no compression, no EQ, no nothing, just the raw waveform. So that's important to remember. We've been getting a lot of tracks lately that were already compressed, had effects on them. Once that's printed, obviously you can't do anything about it. So that makes the session or that particular song take that much longer for that to be redone. So communication, good tracks in, mic placement, phasing, as Hubert was saying, on most DAWs, somewhere on your fader strip is a phase button. If you are doing your own recording, play with the phase button, play with your mic placement. There's plenty of videos on people giving advice on measurements, on the triangle that is used a lot and so forth. But communication, good tracks, and you'll get a great product. So thanks everybody for listening, and I hope you all learned something today. I know I did from a couple of you, and I appreciate it. Your check's in the mail.
Good. We'll go to Johnny next.
Well, I just want to say it's so great to see everybody today, and I'm like Kenny. I just hope everybody's staying safe out there. And I will say, even being probably the newbie in this whole group on here in doing remote recording, I'm going to give the biggest thank you to Brother Kenny for really making the best blind man studio ever. And never thought a legally blind guy could record on my own, so I'm so blessed by that. What I want you guys out there that are watching this to realize is music is art, and music is beautiful, and we're blessed to be able to play it. And whether you're the client or you're the artist playing the music, or you're mixing or you're engineering, whatever the case may be, music is the one thing that we're all trying to capture. And I think one thing that I have learned in the last year is it's not necessarily about how perfect everything is. Yes, technology has made it to where you can virtually fix almost anything, but music has to be real. And I think it's really important to, I know Keo was mentioning something about being on the click and stuff. Kenny has seen that when I've tracked drums, I'm not always on the click every moment, but yet the song has breath, it moves, it does its own thing. And so I think the one thing we have to keep most in our minds is that we are creating art, and we're creating something that is just so amazing to be able to do in the first place. So if the song is not necessarily as perfect as what, I guess today's parameters of what is perfect in a song, it's really about creating the art. And so I'm just tickled to be able to be an artist in the music business today, but to now have the opportunity to record the way I'm recording now, thanks to Brother Kenny, I'm just grateful. I'm thankful to Sennheiser and all my amazing endorsers for taking care of me. And it's been amazing. It's been an amazing ride for me. I had a big, amazing studio in Nashville, but I was scared to death of it. And now Brother Kenny has created a studio that a blind guy can use, and I'm having more fun in my life than I ever have before. So everybody stay safe out there. Let's keep music alive in any way that we can, especially traditional country music, right, guys? But just love y'all, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this today. I really appreciate it. God bless y'all.
Thank you. We'll go to Luke next.
Oh boy, man, you've all said it. I guess one quick thing I'd like to say is for the touring session musicians, we might understand this already. Like, you are your brand. Luke Muller is my brand. So every time I send an email from Luke Muller, or I send a track that Luke Muller played on, that's the brand. So anytime I communicate with someone, I have to be clear. I have to, my personality comes out in all of it at all times. So people are booking me for me. Keo will attest to this. I am not the best fiddle player in Nashville. I'm nowhere near a good fiddle player in Nashville, but I get some work because of my brand, because of the whole package, that I will always be on time. I will always turn up. I will always give my best. And I think if you all remember that, you'll be in good stead. And one last thing, for everything going on in the world at the moment, our industry of live music has been shut down. I would never in a million years think that I would be in a better position than some of my other friends that have, quote, day jobs. And I am just incredibly thankful for that every day. And that's because of the support of all the people here, companies like Sennheiser. Everyone's just, it's such a community. Musicians, we're all here to help each other out. And yeah, man, just keep at it, have some fun, reach out to anyone. Like, oh, that's one thing. reach out to anyone. Try reach out to people here. What's it matter? Find people on Facebook. Send them an email. Ask them a question. That's how I kind of learn stuff. Don't send me an email.
Nice. Nice. Keo?
Man, the advice is just to smile, keep it positive. Remember, people are watching you. Just have fun. Just have fun. Enjoy your time. Make some good music. Enjoy your friends. Make good friends. If you have kids, enjoy your kids. Continue to look for sounds. Sounds are beautiful. Continue to make music. Continue to make people smile. And we're all thankful. Like, once again, Sennheiser is great. There's so many. The music community is just that. It's a community, not a competition. And you have to remember that. We all work together. Even when we don't want to, we still work together. So, thank you.
Nice. Thank you. And Hubert?
Dude, really awesome answers. You guys are super inspiring. I took some great notes. Thank you. Sennheiser, this is awesome. Two things pop in my head. Faith and hope. Faith and hope. So if you have faith and you believe that during this time, every hurdle is going to make you better, you can get through this thing. I've been in a place at certain moments where I would get frustrated with my DAW or trying to record, and I realized, like, whoa, this thing that I love has become a weapon to me, because I get frustrated because I can't do video and audio, and I think that's a danger zone that we need to be aware of. So, man, appreciate this opportunity to make music whatever way you can, whatever level you're on, because it's only going to make you better. And if you believe that the knowledge, everything that you eat, is going to make you better. So when we do get back live and we can do live shows again, you can do both. You'll be able to communicate better as a player. You'll be able to communicate with your sound engineer a little bit better, So just, man, keep faith and believe that everything that you're going through, all the frustration, is going to add to you and make you better. And don't let frustration be a weapon to you. So I just want to encourage you guys in that way, man. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today and everyone who watched today. Please look at Sennheiser.com/seminars. You can find some of the former ones we've done there and the past ones, see what's coming up in the future. And thanks for joining us, and all of the guests here. We really do appreciate all you do for music and bringing smiles and happiness to people and making the world sound wonderful. And thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Been awesome, guys. Thank you so much. See you.
Hey, guys.